Hello, this is Pastor Carl Gallups. As you can imagine, I am often asked why I do not hold to the pre-tribulation rapture teaching. Let me state it simply. I am not pre-tribulation rapture because Jesus is not, and he says so. And Peter emphasizes the truth of which Jesus spoke regarding this particular topic. I've produced several in-depth teaching videos on this subject, so let me get right to the abbreviated truth here. In Luke chapter 17, Jesus declares that the last days and the time of the coming of the Son of Man will be, quote, just like the days of Noah and the days of Lot. Those are the two examples he gave. Jesus emphatically, pointedly, clearly, unambiguously proclaims that the coming of the Son of Man will be, quote, just like this, Noah and Lot's days. Now, Jesus didn't say that the coming of the Son of Man would be kind of like Noah and Lot's days, or similar to, or not exactly like it, but with some pre-tribulation tweaks and eisegetical interpretation. No, he says it will be just like the days of Noah and Lot. The timetable, the order of events, the coming of the Son of Man will be just like this. Now, there's nothing pre-trib about the scenarios of Noah and Lot. Nothing. Not one iota. Noah lived in the midst of the days of the greatest tribulation. And the word tribulation simply means trouble or distress. The worst tribulation the world had ever seen up to that point. So much so that God destroyed everything that had breath. In the very midst of that tribulation, God took care of Noah and his family. But they lived in it, and they lived through it. Then they were raptured out in the ark. Now, Peter, in 2 Peter, repeats this very same truth. And then, after they were raptured out or lifted up and above, the wrath of God, the flood, poured out and destroyed everything. And it's the exact same scenario with Lot. He and his family lived in a culture that was in the midst of great tribulation. The culture they lived in was steeped in filth and wickedness. God said it was so wicked that he would destroy it completely. And they lived in the midst of it. But before God destroyed it, he sent his angels to get his people, Lot and his family, out of that great tribulation. Now, once Lot and his family were gone, the wrath of God fell. Several times in the New Testament, the days of Sodom are used by Jesus as an example of God's judgment that is to come in the end times upon the earth. And like the example of Noah, Peter, in 2 Peter, used Lot as an example of exactly how God will rescue his people in the last days. Again, there is not even a hint of pre-trib rapture in the days of Noah or the days of Lot. And Jesus said the real timeline of last days events would be just like this. And then Peter, the disciple of the Lord and lead pastor of the church at Jerusalem, reiterates those truths in his writing. Jesus said God's people would live in the midst of great tribulation in the last days. Then they would be raptured out. And immediately after that, in both Noah's day and Lot's day, the wrath of God will come upon the whole earth. In light of this truth, when we go to Matthew chapter 24, Jesus has been asked by his disciples about the signs of the end. Jesus eventually speaks of the Antichrist of Daniel, the abomination that causes desolation, standing in the holy place. Jesus then talks about the terrible distress or trouble or tribulation of those days of the Antichrist. Then Jesus declares, but immediately after the tribulation of those days, the Son of Man will send his angels, remind you of Lot, doesn't it, to gather his elect before God's wrath is poured out. What Jesus said matches precisely with the days of Noah and the days of Lot. Now, interestingly, in the Matthew 24 discourse, Jesus follows up his explanation with the very same illustration of the days of Noah. And once again, he declares that the last days sequence of events will be just like Noah's day. There was no pre-trib rapture in Noah's day. I don't believe in the pre-trib rapture for the simple yet profound biblically and contextually undeniable reason that Jesus did not believe in it. Jesus did not teach it. Jesus did not even hint that it was correct. Jesus told us how it would be. Then he gave us two researchable and discernible biblical examples. Then we have his declaration of the very same truth and timetable layout that he gave his disciples in Matthew chapter 24. I don't know how it could be any clearer than this. I'm going to stick with what Jesus said and not the eisegetical, extra-biblical interpretation that the pre-trib rapture crowd gives to these scriptures. I'm going to stick with what Jesus said. That's where I'm going to take my stand. It will be just like this, Jesus declared. I hope this video has helped you understand this important truth. God bless you, and Maranatha.